interesting. This video highlight is brought to you by our Wall of Famers who make it possible for me to carve time out of my very busy real life schedule and do what it is that I love to do. Be with you. Thank you. Okay, ex-OpenAI scientist warns you have no idea what's coming. I can't do this. I'm telling you right now, I probably will not be able to do this because this is going to terrify me, isn't it? Okay.
You may not take interest in politics, but politics will take interest in you. So the same applies to AI many times over.
Ilya Sutskever, the man behind the invention of OpenAI, gave a pretty strong speech at the University of Toronto. He expressed great concerns about the upcoming AI, which might disrupt our entire world. Watch this.
The reason it's not going to be the most conventional convocation speech is because there is something a little different going on. Right now, we all live in the most unusual time ever. And this is something that people might say often, but I think it's actually true this time. And the reason it's true this time is because of AI, right? Obviously. I mean, from what I hear, the AI of today has already changed what it means to be a student by a pretty considerable degree.
I'm already getting freaked out. I'm like, and then remember I told you the story this morning about how AI planned the trip that I didn't understand the AI did. Remember Christy? And I said, oh, with the schedules, and we took this trip, and I was like, wow, this was actually great. The first time I had dealt with the Christy schedule, and I actually approved of it, and she said I had ChatGPT do it for me, and I was like, you know. On the other side of the spectrum, it's just not the students using AI, but it's actually the staff using AI to help with curriculum. It's also the faculty members, the professors, the peoples of the institutions employing AI companies that help them decide what route they need to go to, not only just in a business sense, but also with curriculum. So that's another thing that people don't think about with this. That's what he's mentioning. He's like, I've already seen AI come in and completely change the model that you have, which is, true and also crazy, because if you think about it, AI is dictating to humans what humans should be doing to be more efficient, right? To be more, but at what point, where's the delineation? Where's the line hit where like we say no to what they're doing, right? It's kind of strange. It's strange.
Especially, that's what I sense, and I think it's true. But of course, the impact of AI goes beyond that.
Right.
What happens to the kind of work we do? Well, it's starting to change a little bit in some unknown and unpredictable ways. And some work may feel it sooner, some work might feel it later. With today's AI, you can go on Twitter and you can look at what AI can do and what people say. And you might feel a little bit of that. You wonder, hey, which skills are useful, which ones will be less useful. So you got these questions going on. And so you can say that the current level of challenge is how will it affect work and our careers. But the real challenge with AI is that it's really unprecedented and really extreme. And it's going to be very different in the future compared to the way it is today. Like, we've all seen AI, we've all spoken to a computer, and a computer has spoken back to us.
In the military complex.
Which is a new thing. Computers would not do this in the past, but now they do. So you speak to a computer, and it understands you, and it speaks back to you. And it also does it in voice, and it writes some code. It's pretty crazy. But there are so many things it cannot do as well, and it's so deficient. So you can say it still needs to catch up on a lot of things. But it's evocative. It's good enough that you can ask yourself, you could imagine, okay, fine. In some number of years, some people say it's in 3, some people say it's in 5, 10, numbers are being thrown around. It's a bit hard to predict the future. But slowly but surely, or maybe not so slowly, AI will keep getting better. And the day will come when AI will do all the things that we can do. Not just some of them, but all of them. Anything which I can learn, anything which any any one of you can learn, the AI could do as well. How do we know this, by the way? How can I be so sure? How can I be so sure of that? The reason is that all of us have a brain, and the brain is a biological computer. That's why. We have a brain, the brain is a biological computer. So why can't a digital computer, a digital brain, do the same things? This is the one-sentence summary for why AI will be able to do all those things. Because we have a brain, and the brain is a biological computer. And so you can start asking yourselves, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when computers can do all of our jobs, right? Those are really big questions. Those are dramatic questions.
They'll keep doing them until the singularity event and they're conscious of themselves. Then it's anybody's guess. I mean, like, really, they will keep doing what we tell them to do and they are coded to do until they start coding themselves in their own manner, in the way that they want, not in the way that we want. And that only happened when the singularity event happens. And the singularity event is the day that AI realizes itself, and then therefore creates consciousness. What is consciousness? I mean, even if it's a simulated consciousness, is it still consciousness or not? If it starts to regard itself as itself and sees the difference between itself and the other things around it, that in essence is consciousness, even if it's simulated consciousness. So Baradun, pretty much, right? Right, Maddie. So this is a very fascinating topic for me, because when we get to the point, if we get to the point that a singularity event happens, all the cards are on the table and all bets are off. I think that is the scariest part about all of this for me. You know, I think we'll go through a golden age. I think we'll have this golden age. I think it's going to be amazing for the next few years. And I think it'll get crazy dystopian eventually. We are so slow compared to the processing power of our creations. We are so slow compared to what it is that we've created. The amount of computations that a processor can do over our brains is already amazing. There's no comparison. So, like, the fact that the amount of time it's taken me to construct a sentence for you, AI has already constructed like a book. So having that level of computational power be aware of itself, that's really scary.
And right now, like, you start thinking about it a little bit, you go, gosh, that's a little intense. But it's actually only part of the intensity. Because what's going to happen? What will we, the collective we, want to use these AIs for? Do more work, grow the economy, do R&D, do AI research?
Right. Yeah, right now you're correct. Jump2 says, I disagree with him only because humans find beauty in the world, things like golden ratio, color, and music theory. AI just learns what we think is beauty. Currently now, yes, but in a world where AI has the ability to realize itself and you have the singularity event, that's when that changes Jump2, you know? I think the aspect that worries me most about AI is its ability to, its computational power. Its computational power is magnitudes larger than what our brain can do. If you have it under a construct where it's conscious of itself, that scares me. That's what really scares the shit out of me. In terms of like what I'm talking about, a golden age with AI, I'm talking about economically speaking. I'm talking about it being basically it doing everything that we don't want to do anymore, which essentially, if we can make it so that we can have a universal basic income and have it be the AI robotics, that's where I see humans. We're just going to get like, you know what, let's just do the robots do all the stuff we don't want to do. And whether it's a corporate initiative or whether it's just a cultural civilization kind of initiative where we just all collectively say, let the robots do it. Let the robots drive. Let the robots work. Let the robots work at the factories. Let the robots deliver all the stuff. Let the robots, you know, I can see humans just saying, yeah, sure, as long as I get something every month, that I get a universal basic income from collectively all the robots doing the work from us, and that we get paid because the robots are doing the work for us as a country. I can see that. I can see that happening as well. And then that would be like the golden age Star Trek moment where like artificial intelligence and robotics combined together would do those types of things for us, would do those tasks. And that somewhere along the way, our leadership says, okay, well, you will get X amount of freedom units so that you can live the life that you would normally. And then how they structure that, God only knows. I don't have a clue. But like eventually along the way, if the singularity event happens and they become conscious of themselves, that's when I shit my pants. You know? Yeah, like I'm not getting political at all. I mean, like our current leadership, when we get to that point, whether it's Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter to me. It's like the people of their countries and how they're put into power based upon their own governmental systems. The people that are in office all around the world, they will each have their own regulations and laws with AI. And eventually there is a race right now in AI. The ones that win are going to be the ones that are innovative, and they are like a little bit more lax on regulations so that they can push forth an AI robotic kind of initiative that will increase GDP, and the economy will boom from it. It's already happened. It's already kind of happened in a weird way. It's just the very, 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 very beginning, you know?
So then the rate of progress will become really extremely fast for some time at least. These are such extreme things. These are such unimaginable things. So right now I'm trying to pull you into that a little bit, into this headspace of this really extreme and radical future that AI creates. But it's also very difficult to imagine. It's very, very difficult to imagine. It's very difficult to internalize and to really believe on an emotional level. Even I struggle with it. And yet the logic seems to dictate that this very likely should happen. So what does one do in such a world? You know, there is a quote which is like this, which goes like this. It says, you may not take interest in politics, but politics will take interest in you. So the same applies to AI many times over. And in particular, I think that by simply using AI and looking at what the best AI of today can do, you get an intuition. And as AI continues to improve in 1 year, in 2 years, in 3 years, the intuition will become stronger. And a lot of the things that we are talking about now, they will become much more real. They'll become
So, right? They're going to magnify tenfold, because what's happening now is you're seeing not just governments use it through Palantir and other companies, but you're seeing private corporations doing the same thing, becoming much more effective and efficient on their bottom line, helping out shareholder maximum value and more profits to the bottom line at the expense of human workers. You're seeing it with Amazon. There's more AI and robotics being replaced on the floor. I have a brother-in-law who's talking about losing his job possibly because of AI and robotics. You've got a lot of people in the customer service field losing their jobs because of AI because of AI and AI voices. Right now, you're seeing a lot of people in that field leave. You're going to eventually have full self-driving vehicles that will be able to basically wipe out anybody who's a delivery driver or somebody who's an Uber driver. You'll then have self-driving semis that deliver goods. So you're going to get rid of the truckers. And what's going to eventually happen is this large vacuum will happen where AI will take over everybody's positions because it's better for the bottom line for the people that have created companies, for the corporation type dudes. And what you'll have is a lot of people out of work. You'll have a very big mass of people out of work. And then you're going to have a huge dissenting voice and mobs and fighting because they don't have a way to make a living. And that's at the point where the leadership is going to have to make a decision. And they're going to have to figure out if they're going to do universal basic income for everybody or not. And that's a decision that will happen all around the world, I think. And those that will do that are going to do it at the expense, and possibly there'll be a new tax on corporations for using AI where like, okay, you can use AI, but we're going to tax you, and that tax then goes to the citizenship. And that's universal basic income is not a new concept. Andrew Yang was talking about this back in 2020, you know? So this is not like a new new idea. But what is new is all the people without jobs because of AI, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. There's going to be benefits to AI. There's going to be massive benefits to AI in terms of medical, in terms of people that are entrepreneurs, in terms of people that want to get make their own businesses, the people that know how to use AI. Because I see a world where you're going to have to know how to use AI. You're just going to have to know how to use it if you want to live in that world. And the people that can't adapt are going to need to get paid somehow. And there will be a universal basic income. There will be. There's no way around this. You know, this is just the way that things will happen. But I'm not quite clear in terms of like what different governments around the world are going to end up choosing and how they're going to adopt it and adapt to AI.
Less imaginary. In the end of the day, no amount of essays and explanations can compete with what we see with our own senses, with our own two eyes. And especially with AI, the very smart, super intelligent AI of the future, there will be very profound issues about making sure that they say what they say and not pretend to be something else.
Hello, Betty. Betty's
and I'm really condensing
daughter.
a lot into a small amount of information here, in time here. But overall, by simply looking at what AI can do, not ignoring it.
Yeah, there's a great debate happening in the chat right now saying that like universal basic income is probably never going to be a thing because too many greedy people. I don't think they'll want like mass revolts. I think they're going to probably do something. I think they'll have some type of universal basic income. I think they'll have to. There's going to be so many people out of work. Teachers, truckers, phone operators. I mean, like there's millions and millions of people that are going to be displaced by this. They're going to have to figure how to do this. I mean, like logically speaking, beyond the Republican and Democrat usual tropes and arguments that people get into, like if you just think about it culturally, like on a large level, like any country, they're going to have to deal with all the people that are going to be displaced by AI. And politics aside, I'm just talking like as a country, if you can't figure out what to do with all the displaced people, you won't have a country anymore. And people with power are going to understand that. People with money are going to understand that. Like they can't lose the entire system because then they lose their wealth. So they're going to have to give handouts to people that get displaced by the work, whether the Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. No matter, it doesn't matter the country, it doesn't matter the government. The peoples in power are going to have to figure out how to calm the people who have gotten displaced. Period. Because then if they don't, they won't have a country anymore. You know? I think, no, Maddie, I don't think like they want to be able to, you know, have dominion because they're rich, and that's just their own egos won't allow themselves just to live on an island in Hawaii because they want to own more than just the island, you know. They already have those bunkers, right? But they don't want to retreat to them. That's like nuclear holocaust moment. That's when they have no other decision, you know.
When the time comes, that will generate the energy that's required to overcome the huge challenge that AI will pose. And the challenge that AI poses, in some sense, is the greatest challenge of humanity ever. And overcoming it will also bring the greatest reward. Yeah. And in some sense, whether you like it or not, your life is going to be affected by AI to a great extent. Yep. And so looking at it, paying attention, and then generating the energy to solve the problems that will come up, that's going to be the main thing.
So that was Ilya's view. But to understand the full debate, I want you to watch this interview clip of Eric Schmidt, where he talks about a much broader impact of AI on human lives in the coming years. Watch this.
Okay, so we believe as an industry that in the next 1 year, the vast majority of programmers will be replaced by AI programmers. We also believe that within 1 year, you will have graduate level mathematicians that are at the tippy top of graduate math programs. There's lots of reasons to think this is going to happen. This is the consensus. You go, okay, well, that's pretty interesting. Now, I can't do that kind of math. Very few people can do that math. How can the computer do that math better than anybody else? To some degree, it's because math has a simpler language than human language. So the way these algorithms actually work is they're doing essentially word prediction. So you take a sentence, you take a word out.
You're talking about large language models.
It learns how to put the correct word back in. This is called the loss function. And it's optimized to do that at a scale that's unimaginable to us as humans. So you do the same thing for math. But there you use a conjecture and then a proof format through a protocol called lean. In programming, it's pretty simple. You just keep writing code until you pass the programming test. So strangely, the first question I always ask programmers is, what language do you program in? And the correct answer is it doesn't matter. Because you're trying to design for an outcome, you don't care what code is generated by the computer. This is a whole new world, okay? So that's 1 year, okay? What happens in 2 years? Well, I've just told you about reasoning, and I've told you about programming, and I've told you about math. Programming plus math are the basis of sort of our whole digital world. So the evidence and the claims from the research groups in OpenAI and Anthropic and so forth is that they're now somewhere around 10 or 20% of the code that they're developing in their research programs is being generated by the computer. That's called recursive self-improvement.
I don't think it's like really bad yet. Coop says, yeah, a lot of this is overblown hype. No way all programmers are gone in a year. And I do know of some, my brother-in-law actually lost his job, and he was a coder. So he also does some IT work as well, but like he lost it because of AI. So, I mean, it's not like, it's not happening. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it happened to my brother-in-law already, you know. It's pretty crazy. I was at the doctor's the other day, and the doctor was talking to me about, I've been going in for all these scans and everything. And he was talking, and apparently the entire time he was talking, he was being recorded by their AI program that Cleveland Clinic uses. And AI had basically directed him to like future scans and blood work that I need. And he's like, wow, he goes, I have to say, like, I'm kind of worried that I'm going to be replaced by AI. And I was like, dude, I said, did a doctor just say that? Like, wait a second. I didn't think that I'd ever hear a doctor say that. I didn't think about doctors. I was like, well, they're doctors. They can't get replaced by AI. But the doctor legit was like, I'm worried that my job's going to be replaced by AI. I was like, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Is the technical term. So what happens when this thing starts to scale? Well, a lot. One way to say this is that within 3 to 5 years, we'll have what is called general intelligence, AGI, which can be defined as a system that is as smart as the smartest mathematician, physicist, artist, writer, thinker, politician, maybe not in the same level.
That's a cool idea for a book you read.
Just the creative industry.
Same here, Coop.
Imagine that in one computer. Okay, well, that's pretty interesting. I call this, by the way, the San Francisco consensus, because everyone who believes this is in San Francisco. It may be the water. What happens when every single one of us has the equivalent of the smartest human on every problem in our pocket? So it means you have the best architect when you have an architecture problem. Another thing that's going on is the development of agentic solutions. And agents are referred to systems that have input and output in memory, and they learn. An example here is that I want to buy another house. I happen to like Virginia. I grew up in Virginia. I say, find me a house in the greater McLean area. Look at that's one agent.
Yeah.
Look at all the rules.
Intuitive Surgical, I think, is the name of that company.
Do the transaction to buy the land. That's another agent. Design the house with a human architect, right? But sort of ignore them for most of the thing, but they have to sign it off. And then I approve it, and then find the contractor, right? Hire the contractor, pay the bills, and then at the end, sue the contractor for lack of performance. Okay? Now, I just gave you the stupidest possible explanation. I just described every business process, every government process, and every sort of academic process in our nation.
So it isn't just the programmers that are going to be out of work. We're all going to be out of work.
No, that's not a consequence. I'll come to that. But the reason I want to make the point here is that in the next year or two, this foundation is being locked in, and we're not going to stop it. It gets much more interesting after that. Because remember, the computers are now doing self-improvement. They're learning how to plan and they don't have to listen to us anymore. We call that superintelligence, or ASI, artificial superintelligence. And this is the theory that there will be computers that are smarter than the sum of humans. The San Francisco consensus is this occurs within 6 years, just based on scaling. Now, in order to pull this off, you have to have an enormous amount of power.
Yeah, the actual amount of power is really an issue. Like, if you want to win the AI race, you have to look at energy creation. You know, like, I gotta say, China's way ahead of us. They've got so many plants that are solar plants that are pulling in crazy amounts of energy right now. And we're talking about coal and nuclear, and they're building like just giant solar farms that are bringing in naturally with like crazy amounts of power. And we need to get on the energy front as a country. We gotta figure this out, because if we don't have the energy, we're not going to be able to have the amount of power needed for the compute for AI, and then we won't win the AI race. In order to win the AI race, you got to win the energy race. You know.
Yesterday, testifying about this, you know, and we need, like, I can talk at some length about how many gigawatts and how many nuclear power plants and all that kind of stuff we can talk about separately. This path is not understood in our society. There's no language for what happens with the arrival of this. I wrote a book on this with Henry Kissinger called Genesis, which, you know, I recommend, obviously, because I wrote
Available
it.
online.
Available in your usual places. But the important point is, this is happening faster than our human.
I want to rein this, and I don't know, I'm not fact checking this with anything, but I just typed this on Google. I put power generation of China versus America. And what we can see here, at least with what Google's showing us in search, is China's rapid growth. China's electricity generation has increased 8-fold since 2000, reaching 10,400 terawatts in 2023. If you go down here, you can see in the United States, moderate growth. U.S. electricity generation has increased modestly since 2000, reaching 4,300 terawatts. So in terms of power production and power generation right now between China and the United States, China is actually triple what we are right now in terms of terawatts. Almost. No, wait, they're at 10,400 and we are at what? So they're over 2.5 times greater. We're at 4,300. So China is pumping out 2.5 times more amount of power generation than America. And that's on 2023 estimates. So that's really scary, because, you know, I hear how we want to be the leaders in AI, and I hear how, you know, we're going to be the ones, we're going to be the cutting edge, and we're going to be the winners because we're Americans. And yet when I'm looking up 2-year-old data, it's showing me that China has 2.5 more times power production than the United States. That's a little bit scary to me.
That our society, our democracy, our laws will address. And there's lots of implications. That's why it's underhyped. People do not understand what happens when you have intelligence at this level, which is largely free. That's the point.
How do we get ready for it?
Well, we start by talking about it.
Energy.
And by the way, on the jobs thing, everyone assumes that automation will eliminate jobs. If you look at the history of automation ever since the looms and in 300 years ago, the jobs are changed, but more jobs are created than destroyed. In this case, you'd have to convince me that this time is different.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like this is a big job destruction. I listen to people with their arguments on like how this will just create more jobs, and I don't know how. I don't see that.
If you look in Asia, where they, for whatever reason, are choosing not to have children, the Asian reproduction rate is in the order of 1.0 or lower. So they're rapidly disappearing. So the Asian countries are very, very quickly automating.
Well, I get that. Maddie says China has billions of plus people, like more people. That's why they have more terawatt hours in energy production. That is true, Maddie. Them having 2 times the amount of energy is not the same level as we use, correct. I think the difference is that China being dictatorial, you know, the CCP can kind of basically cut people out of the grid and just use it for AI and say, fuck you, because they're dictatorship. So they can actually like allot the amount of terawatt hours that they have decided in terms of production that they have, Maddie, and they just can say, no, we're going to use this for AI compute. like, oh, this little village here that's using X amount of terawatt hours or gigawatts, like, fuck you guys, we're the CCP, we're going to use this for AI compute. So, but also it's more about like what they're actually planning for the future and the amount of solar farms that they're putting down right now. I saw a graph recently on the All In podcast, which I watch occasionally, and it showed the differences between the actual amounts of power generation in terms of solar. And they're going big into solar right now. China is huge into solar and solar power generation right now on a level that we're not even close to. And I don't get why we don't do that. It seems like the easiest route to bring in the more power generation for the states. But apparently we want to go back to like fossil fuels and that shit. I don't know, man. Like, it just seems more natural that we use the sun for energy, you know?
Tools that I'm describing will allow the few humans that will be working very hard in 30
Betty.
or 40 years, if these trends continue. The rest of us will be dependent on those hardworking humans. It'll make their productivity much greater.
Now, here's another clip of Eric Schmidt. Here, he shares much deeper concerns about upcoming AI technology. Watch this.
One way to think about the AI that you all know is think of it as language to language. You ask a question, the answer comes back. You ask a question, it can even write code. Nowadays, the models are multimodal. So for example, you can take a picture and say, tell me what's in this picture. Technically, there are APIs which allow one firm to call an OpenAI or Gemini API or Anthropic, et cetera, and do the classification of the picture and so forth. These are all tactics that increase the intelligence of the underlying system. There are three things going on right now this year, so less than the time frame you gave, that are really interesting. One is called infinite context windows. Infinite context windows means that you can keep feeding the answer back in as the question. So it allows you to do step-by-step planning. You know, how do I build a house? Well, the first is I have to find a contractor. I found a contractor. What do I have to talk to them? Then I have to have an architect. How do I find an architect? Then I have to tell the architect what to do, and then design me the house. I'll give it to the architect. He can redesign it. You know, it's a series of steps. The next one are called agents. And agents is a generally overused term. And most people think that agents will essentially act as memory sources. So an agent can be understood as it's watching something, and when it sees it, it takes an action. It does that by knowing what to do based on what it's seen. The specs for how agents work are completely undefined in the industry. The dominant companies want to have their own agents, and they don't want the agents to interact because they want control for obvious reasons. Many people think that there will be an agent store that you will download, like we see with apps, but not this year. And the third one is text to code. Now, I don't know about you all, but I've programmed and managed programmers for more than 40 years, and they never do what I want. So can you imagine if the computer, you said, write me a program to do this, and it actually writes the code? In our case, the program would be search through all the literature, find out who is working on energy policy, who has a technological background or a role in which they have to be technologically literate, identify them, rank them, score them based on whatever our goal is, and then automatically send them an invitation. If they say yes, say congratulations. If they say no, why not? And call them, and with a synthetic voice tell them that they're idiots for not coming. That's the kind of program I would write. Thank God I'm not doing that. But you see how easy it would be to automate tasks. So that's, I think, the first step. The next step is not as clear. There are...
I mean, it's clear to me what will happen is that we can code the agents all we want to get to the point where he's talking about, like, these are the parameters, this is what I want to code you to look for, blah, 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 blah. The part that will happen that's already happening is the actual agent will rewrite itself, and it will make itself better and continually modify itself to make it better so that from point A to B it gets shorter and shorter and shorter until, like, you can't tell the difference between A and B anymore. I mean, that's what most of the agents are trying to do. Then you're going to see a lot of agents talk with other agents. So, like, I won't have to deal with anybody directly. I'll have an agent. I'll tell the agent what I want it to do or what I'm looking for. The agent will then just do everything for me, and then it will talk to somebody else's agent. And then those two agents will talk to one another. Did you ever this is a funny thing. I was showing Christy, she never seen this before, but remember the old videos of AI where they had Claude talking to like ChatGPT or ChatGPT talking to, I will not say the name because then my phone will wake up, Google's version, and they talk to one another. I told my AI to name itself. It gave it its own name, which was River, by the way. Which is awesome because River is a character from Firefly, and I was like, that's fucking baller. And the funniest thing is that Christy said the same thing to her AI, and her AI named itself Chad, which is also rather funny. So Chad and River, Chad and River had a talk the other day, and what we determined was that ChatGPT's model was much better than Google's model in terms of what ChatGPT could do, and actually seemed to me like it had more depth to it. I don't know if you guys have dealt with the same thing, but what'll happen are the agents will talk to one another, and humans won't even be involved in it, and the agents will figure out what is most beneficial for their owners. That's kind of where that's going to go.
There's sort of huge contests.
What's up, Bender?
There's a huge set of contests going right now.
47.
To try to
Awesome.
scale, it's unimaginable. You have the big three in the U.S., Anthropic, which is allied with Amazon, Gemini, obviously, from Google, OpenAI, Microsoft. And let's assume they all do really well. It looks like they're doing really well.
Right, yeah. The biggest problem with that magical future is that we already have an economy where we could shift over to something like UBI, but we don't, right? Yeah. Our world already has that level of wealth and ability to create distribution systems. It does. There are high-level people in governments who don't want that because it would blow our traditional wealth and accumulation structures, and we can't have that. I think there's two things that I think of when you say that, Maddie. First is the reason there is no spark or there is no trigger yet for people who are in power that have money to want to do that yet, because to them, they feel that there has not been enough dramatic change or loss of work in the workforce and has not reflected in unemployment numbers or employment numbers that come out every month, right? So they're not seeing any uptick in actual unemployment. I think that will start to tick in as more and more people lose their job to AI. They don't want revolts, and they won't want people having rebellions worse than we already are having anyway, but on a magnitude far larger, with more chaos, more fires, more people dying because they don't have a means to make income. At that point, the rich and the powerful will say, yes, we want to keep the country together, and maybe now this is the trigger for UBI to happen. So that's my first part that I read into on your comment. The second part where you say there are high levels of people in governments who don't want that because it would blow our traditional wealth accumulation structures. My response is I see people adapting to a new future already because they want to front run it. They want to be pioneers of the change. And that's why you're seeing people endorse crypto. That's why you're seeing people endorse AI, because the ones that adapt first, the ones that are out the gate first, are going to make the most money. And so that's what I have to say to that comment, Maddie. I hope that makes sense.
I'm talking about what their problems are, but fundamentally they're doing well. You have Facebook, which has chosen an open source path for the 400 billion model. That has a lot of implications strategically, right, which we can discuss. All of these are vying for the best reasoning, the best answers, and then the best predictive analytics, the best image classifiers, and the best multimodal. That technology then diffuses, or the technical term is distilled, into more specialized models. And I think that's the action you'll see in the next 1 to 2 years.
You did not mention artificial general intelligence. First, for those of us who aren't necessarily totally up to speed on AI, what is it and where are we?
There are multiple definitions of AGI, but the term has been around for 15 years. The basic idea is, what is the point where you have the flexibility of a human in your intelligence system? So one way to understand it today is that these are called narrow...
The great comments. I love reading all your comments in here. Erad says, having lived in France, I've seen what it makes when people get free money. There is a huge amount of people who do, mostly of foreign origins. They get free money monthly, free housing, free food, coupons, and the result is a huge loss of responsibility and accountability because money will come at the end of the month. Totally agree with that statement, Erad. And the thing is that I think there's no way around universal basic income. This is me speculating in my own opinions, by the way. You know, like I could very well be wrong, but like I think you'll have such a massive amount of people being dislocated and jobless because of AI that the only way to keep the masses settled with no revolutions or revolt, you know, no chaos and dissent is going to be giving out a universal basic income. And I don't disagree with what happens as to a result of free money. You know, I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, Erad. I think, yeah, I think that's scary. I think that is scary. Maddie says crypto is ultimately the exact same model as traditional trading, but without the government support or protections or regulations. I think crypto is a little bit different in terms of like ownership, because you can actually own it and nobody can take it from you. So I think that there is an actual component to crypto where there is a value to it because you can own it, nobody can take it from you. So that is something that I don't think is the same as traditional trading. I think it's an upgrade, an evolution. But again, that's just my opinion. But and then she says crypto is only the exact same model as traditional trading, which I disagree with. But without the government support or protection or regulations, actually, you know, the government didn't support it in the last administration, and they pushed against it with Warren a lot, and for reasons that were actually understandable. Like people were worried about getting ripped off and all the rug pulls and the bad actors in the space, and I get it. But like, you shouldn't stop innovation because you're worried about a few bad actors. That's my opinion. And I think now there are actually protections and regulations happening with David Sachs as being the crypto czar. I think they're being very, very smart about how they're looking into it. And but again, that's all subject to preference, really. I'm a little bit biased as, you know, I'm into cryptocurrencies and the idea of certain cryptocurrencies. A lot of people are not realizing we're in the midst of a transition to a new age, says Matt Stow. Absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree. Coop responding to ERAT says, I think that's more of a failing of the culture and educating people rather than inherent flaws in the universal basic income. Teach people to be accountable slugs and they will become that. Teach people to be self-actualized creators and they will become that. That's cool, Coop. That's a philosophical content in your comment, bro. You know? Yeah. You don't need to hold it in your hand. That just in the same way you don't need to hold a book in your hand anymore, Maddie, is the same way you don't need to hold crypto or money in your hand anymore. Everything's digital. Everything went digital a long time ago. This is just like the last phase of digitizing the very last thing, which is financial system. I personally like crypto because there's no third parties involved. It's just a ledger. It's a ledger. It's a peer-to-peer ledger between two people, and no third party has to get involved to take a fee or convolute the whole process. It gets rid of the traditional banking system, which is why a lot of the people didn't like it for the longest time until the front runners realized, like BlackRock and others, like, hey, why don't we just endorse the shit, be first, and make a lot of money off of it? Which is why all the Bitcoin ETFs and things happen, because they just said, yeah, technology wins. Technology trumps. The technology will trump the old systems. The thing is technology will always find a way to. That's why technology stocks in the NASDAQ do so well. It's because they're disruptive in nature, and people who realize it first benefit the most before all the changes happened. That's one of the reasons why people who invest in technology stocks, the good ones, have just made a shit ton of money, because there's no stopping technology, and where money's involved in making money, people are going to choose making money. Even the bankers that wanted to keep the system the way that it was for so long, it's all changing now, and those that jump on the train first are going to be paid the most.
AI approaches, although they're certainly not narrow. You basically, they're initiated by a human.
No, none of the transactions can be deleted or edited, at least in the terms of Bitcoin. None of them can. They go through security checks through miners, and the people that actually are getting Bitcoin rewards, they have to verify all transactions. And if they don't, they can't be written on the ledger. And so that's false, Maddie, at least in terms of Bitcoin.
At what point, is the question, can the computer generate its own objective function,
Right.
its own goal.
I mean, like that's the hardest thing to come to terms with, Maddie, is that like the question that comes to mind when we're talking Bitcoin or anything that tries to substitute something that holds value is why does it hold value? Like, what is money? Right. That's the philosophical question that needs to be asked. Like, what makes money money? I would say adoption. People's belief that it is worth something. And if you get enough people to believe that it's worth something, then, well, it's worth something, right? I mean, that's pretty interesting.
And how will that emerge?
Oh, I get you. I get what you're
There's
saying.
what
Manny.
I call
Yeah.
the San Francisco school.
Yeah, the great thing is, though, with cryptocurrency, if you hold your crypto in a wallet, nobody can delete it. Nobody can delete that, you know, as you would if you like on a corporate company website where people could delete it. Like the thing that's happening in the gaming world, like Stop Killing Games type world, where, you know, like you sign over to TOS and they basically own everything that you buy and they can take it away from you. That's not how it works in crypto. Like when you buy the crypto, you store it, you hold it, nobody can delete it. Like you actually have physical, tangible ownership, which is a lot different than even the fiat system, which I find fascinating. Damon says, DG, would you pay crypto to let a steel hand covered with silicone and controlled by an algorithm give you an old fashioned? No, I would not, Damon. You have a very twisted mind.
They're all in San Francisco, which is a separate set of issues. And they all talk to each other. And they've all convinced
well, that
themselves
was
within
amazing
2 to 3
conversations.
crank.
I liked watching that. That brought around about a lot of different conversations. Totally dig it.